everyone, welcome back to the Great L podcast. It's been a while, as always, quite frankly, I am surprised that out of all the segment videos that we do these days, these are the ones that take the longest to do.
Yeah, and somehow we managed to find time for specifically these ones.
Yeah. But yeah, we're finally back with another entry, and yeah, I'm Kobi, and I am once again joined by my great friend here, Liln.
Hi. It's good to be back. We haven't done one of these in a very long time.
Yeah, it's been too long, really.
We have a lot of topics to discuss.
A lot of exciting ones. Some that I'm sure are going to get a bit annoying at points, but honestly, it's more in the good camp, thankfully, because a lot of this stuff I'm really excited to talk about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, kicking off with this one straight away, really, because, yeah, good to get this in the go. We're going to be discussing the future of cinema with Lovecraft. Now, what's your stance on Lovecraft? What do you think of the genre?
I actually love Lovecraftian horror. Like, the type of, cosmic horror that he does is absolutely phenomenal, just because it makes your imagination actually work for the movie. So, all the movie doesn't have, visuals and stuff. It's all depending on what your mind makes up the monster to be. And I love that more because you can make it the monster on a much, much bigger scale. Say, Cthulhu, for example. Cthulhu being the one more famous ones for Lovecraft. The fact that the sheer scale you can't even imagine is already, an amazing concept for a movie. It would be very hard to do, but movies like Bird Box kind of did it.
Yeah.
Bird Box was really good. I know some people that didn't like that because they couldn't see the monsters, but that's the point. That's the point of the movie. You can't see the monsters. You're meant to kind of imagine. The closest you get to it is the actual drawings of mental patients you see in the movie. But you absolutely just can't even imagine what the monster is, and that is more scary than actually showing a monster to me.
Yeah, I think Lovecraft is something that's interjected into a lot of works that we are all familiar with in some form, like Alien, for example, and as you said, like Bird Box. Yeah. And I think it's a genre that isn't always explored because, as you said, there are limitations to it for moviegoers for entertainment quality, and it's difficult and it's frustrating, really, that it's not really been given the movie quality treatment. But thankfully, it does seem that things seem to be going in that direction because, I don't know if you know, but recently a movie came out called The Colour from Outer Space, starring Nicolas Cage.
Ooh, it's already amazing. Is Nicolas Cage the monster?
No, sadly. But however, it's adapted from a Lovecraft short story called The Colour from Outer Space.
Okay, I haven't actually heard of this. Could you explain it to me a little bit?
I haven't seen it, sadly, yet, because I'm too busy with work, but a lot of our friends have actually said it looks really good. It's almost like they say it's similar to Mandy.
Okay, right. So really, really just crazy.
In a way, it's from all the reviews that I've looked at, people say it's a return to form, especially for the director, because apparently the director, God knows I don't know his name, he hasn't done any film since the late 90s. And
right.
that alone is impressive. But for the main point, the story of A Colour of Outer Space is it's basically about this family.
Maybe he'd be perfect for it then, to actually make the film. If he's not made films since the 90s, hopefully he just sticks with... Because 90s films, let's face it, a lot of them are really, really good compared to some of the newer CGI type films. There's something about, the type of way, old horror was compared to new horror. You can tell there is a massive difference. Obviously, jump scares and everything are really, really scary nowadays, and they can be really, really, really well, done up with the computer. But there's something about someone making a puppet of something and making it really there, like in the Jurassic Park films, compared to Jurassic World, where it was all CGI compared to puppet animatronics. It's something where it seems more realistic and just more body horror to me, more gruesome.
You got a point, because I do think that early films had that limitation of just relying on the practical side of things, and they had masterful people who had visions and ideas and concepts that they wanted to explore or they wanted to represent on screen. Whereas today, when we have so much access to creating what is essentially, again, you look at Jurassic Park, we can now visualize dinosaurs as if they were real. We can visualize monsters with tentacles and undersea creatures as if it was a factual documentary. But because of that, because of the spectacle, we lose the important things like the story, or they just don't become as important, and as such it becomes lackluster, or worse, it becomes irrelevant, because on the first viewing, you can say, "Oh, I love it. It's a great movie. It's got this great visual. It's got this great cast." But when you look at the bare bones of it, it's like, oh, these characters don't make sense in the setting, or they don't act natural, or the scenario and the events of how this unfolds just doesn't make sense, because what you're essentially saying is this and that happened because of this. Where's the logic? Especially when it comes to the logic of the world that they're trying to tell or explore.
That's the thing with Lovecraft, though, isn't it? It doesn't have logic.
In a way, because I think what is so important about Lovecraft is it's the idea of the unknown. The idea that there's something out there that we can't comprehend.
Your humanity. There's it makes you understand your humanity and how little and insignificant you are compared to the great wide universe.
Exactly. And I can understand why it's been difficult for media to accept that and make something of it. And it is a shame, but really, there's hope for it, I think, because, as I was saying, The Colour of Outer Space has apparently been very well received. People are saying it's a return to form for the director. The cast apparently do great, especially Nick Cage. And not only that, apparently it's going to be the first in a trilogy of films.
Ooh.
Because they've, even though I don't think there's been a big announcement for it, the director confirmed in an article, which I've got here actually, saying that, here it is, filmmaker Richard Stanley, director of the H.P. Lovecraft adaptation of The Colour from Outer Space, has announced that he's writing 2 follow-up films. Stanley responded, "I am pleased to say that this is the first in a trilogy. I'm really hard at work with the second script." He says his next script is going to be an adaptation of The Dunwich Horror, a 1928 story by the infamous horror director. When asked if he's making a linked Lovecraftian universe, Stanley responded that Lovecraft already did, so he doesn't need to. Oswald asked Cage if he's involved, and Cage responded that he doesn't know.
The fact that Cage does not know what's going on means this is a great film. This is going to be the best thing ever to come out in cinema.
In regards to the Dunwich Horror, have you ever heard of that or read it?
I have not actually, no.
Well, in short, the story is about this family called the Whiteleys, and it's mostly about their son, Wilbur.
Okay.
And it's a story about this family keeping a secret hidden within their home, and it's basically about them trying to keep it hidden from the residents of Dunwich. And that's the basics. But that alone kind of sets you the idea of what this trilogy, this vision for this series is going to be about. It's going to be very more practical human stories, and it's not going to be overblown big budgets, Game of Thrones style.
But it's still set in the Lovecraftian universe.
Yeah, it's going to be its own story. In a way, it's going to be trying to emulate the MCU, but it's not going to be very obvious about it.
So each film is going to be its own story, but connected.
Yeah, that's the impression I get. It's not going to try and be like The Mummy, where they basically drop references here and there and say this is stuff that's going to happen down the line.
No, please no.
Just tell your own story, make it good, and any bits that might sound interesting to explore down the line, you can do that in the future. You can do it then, not as opposed to tease us now.
Yeah.
Because there's a good fine line between set up and blatant, hey, this is part 1 of this story. And it's exciting, really, because I spent a long time since I read the Dunwich Horror, but that's an adaptation that I would love to see done today, especially with creative teams like the people who have done Colour from Outer Space, and I think they'd be amazing. And I guess for the gist of this part of Lovecraft, I just think it'd be great to one day get the chance to see an adaptation of The Call of Cthulhu and have it be done faithful, but see it in all its glory from a visual standpoint. Because I can guarantee.
The best way they could really do that is make the whole film just everyone's going insane slowly and stuff. Like Cthulhu has popped up, you don't see him throughout the entire film, and then through like a massive mist. The most visual I think you can get with Cthulhu is a massive mist, and you see like giant tentacles coming like just out of the mist with like a thunder strike or something, and that's all you get to see of them.
In a way, kind of like The Edge of Nowhere, where you don't...
Edge of Nowhere, Call of Cthulhu, loads of different Lovecraftian video games have done it like that. Because video games, you do need to like a sort of visual, and all the Lovecraftian games that I know of personally, all don't really show you the main monster until the very end. But the fact that they show you it is already different to how I think films should do it.
In a way, yeah. I just think that it's a clever way to get around it, but still staying in spirit to it. Because Cthulhu is that kind of idea, that just knowing it.
You're not even meant to be able to pronounce his name, are you? It's meant to be like in such a weird vocal tone that you say his name that it's meant to just sound like or something, and it's really like you just can't say it.
I guess really overall, I'm just excited for this because who knows what this might pave the way for the future of Lovecraft's work in film, especially if it's to the quality of The Colour from Outer Space, because I would love to see them do adaptations of the Dunwich Horror. One of the main films I would love to see them bring to life, novels, would be, have you ever heard of The Shadow of Innsmouth?
I have not, no.
That's a great story about this guy who goes to this seaside town, and he basically discovers there's something going on with the population there, and it's this great story that is its own thing, but you can really see there's elements and history with the old ones and Cthulhu in its own way, and it's a perfect standalone story, but in its own way it does give you insight into the early years of the old ones and the influence they've had over people that extend back from the past to the present. And I would love to see that brought to life visually and as part of this universe, if this is the potential that we can get from that.
That would be amazing to have like some really good Lovecraftian stories, because we don't really have anything in film wise that is like super good, which is Lovecraftian. There's stuff that is like Lovecraftian inspired, which is quite good, but not Lovecraftian itself.
The few films that have been made have mostly been like 90s attempts that have they've just not stood up to the test of time, or they haven't understood the source material to a T. So I'm hopeful that this means we can get some definitive pieces of work brought to life. But we now go on to that with a bit of a disappointment side of it, because it was also announced a while back, actually, because I've got another article here, that David and Dan from Game of Thrones, of all people, have been contracted to make a film adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu Mythos, based on the graphic novel by Hans Rodefall, if I can pronounce that last name. God damn it.
So, are they the writers?
Let's have a look.
So, who are D&D? What did they do in Game of Thrones?
They were the showrunners, and bit of history.
Were they in charge of the last couple seasons, mainly?
They were in charge of the entire thing.
Oh, right, and they just fucked up the last seasons.
Yeah, so just bit of context for everyone. So you haven't seen the final season yet?
No, but I just know they fucked up. I know they fucked up because I've heard of how bad it is, not because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I've been spoiled on it, unfortunately, just a very, small scene right at the end, but I could just tell by that scene didn't do it right.
Yeah, and
so that makes me worried. That does make me worried instantly.
Yeah, because
they're going to half-ass it. They're going to do a really good, couple seasons and then going to fuck it again, aren't they? Because they're going to make it too good.
Yeah, the main problem with D&D, I feel, is that they, from all the information that's gotten out there after Thrones, it feels like they weren't really prepared for the big leagues. Because they've talked about in interviews which you could find, I'm sure, somewhere on the internet, everyone who's listening, but there's been interviews where they talk about Thrones in past tense, and there's one interview where they basically say, to them it was almost like a film school for them.
Yeah.
And when you hear things like that, and you say, and they're talking about
they didn't know it was going to get that big, and the fact it did, they couldn't handle it.
Yeah, and it gets more frustrating too when you find out that as the series went on, when they got more confident with themselves, they less relied on George, and if reports are to be believed, allegedly they got so overconfident they refused to take in his advice at certain points. They pushed him to finish the next book so they could have more source material, and when they finally discarded it altogether, they insisted, we want to finish it at 7 or 8. Sorry.
So they ran out of source material, basically, and then they were like, we could do it by ourselves, and they couldn't.
Yes. And it's more frustrating in terms of that, because you look at the finished results with Thrones, and I'm sure there will be people who like the ending, or they like how the show turned out.
I don't know many that do.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it feels like such a 180.
It's mainly because the first few seasons of that show were so good, it's hard to live up to the end. The end might not even be that bad, but it was a bad conclusion to that series. If you take that ending from a 2-season show, maybe it would be great. If it was a 2-season show that had different characters and it was that kind of end, maybe it would have been okay, because it was a smaller show. But the fact that Game of Thrones was so popular and so well written at the beginning, It's going to fuck up near the end. And that is where they went wrong. And that makes me very, very scared for any Lovecraftian horror they're going to make. How the fuck are they going to make a Cthulhu film?
Exactly. And that's why I want to say, last bit of touch on Game of Thrones. Because I just think that, in the end, they couldn't understand everything, and they didn't want to stay in that world, so they chose to just end it there and there, the most simplest way they could. And the truth is that they could have made it work. Because trust me, mate. When you do see the final season, I'm curious to see what your thoughts will be. But I can definitely say you're going to think, I could see how this could be the ending, but this is not how they should have executed it. Yeah. Because it does feel like they cut corners a lot, especially near the end, which you'll find out. Yeah. And I feel like giving these guys the reins of a potential Cthulhu style movie that basically says, what if these creatures were real? That alone just doesn't really instill confidence in me, because I would rather them do, number one, I'd rather them do adaptations of the books that actually adapt the books. Don't just say, oh, let's just take the Lovecraft concept and put it in the real world as if it was real.
No, they're good at adapting books. They're good at adapting books. They proved that with the first few seasons of Game of Thrones.
That is true.
But they are not good at writing by themselves.
Exactly.
Don't trust them by themselves. Don't put them in a room alone. They need to be with Northa to help them through this.
Yeah, and that's just my main concern, because I loved Thrones, and the ending really tore me, because I had such potential, had high hopes for it, and such potential it could have gone with. In regards to them potentially making this movie, if they get around to doing it, because again, I don't think we've had any new news from that recently, and again, they've still got that Netflix deal with their own projects to work with, so who knows if they're ever going to get this off the ground. But I'm just more concerned with if their film bombs, and it's the most expensive one out of them made, compared to the Lovecraft verse being made by the current team who made a Colorado from Outer Space. I'm just more concerned that if their film flops, how's that going to reflect on other Lovecraft media when the main public sees this?
That's true. That people are just going to drop it and be like, no, people just don't like the genre when it's just you haven't done it right. Is the problem. Like, this is going to be a really hard challenge for them. And the fact that they've come out of finishing Game of Thrones the way they did, and they're going into something so ambitious and really, really hard to do. Like, cosmic horror is really hard to do and it's hard to do it right. The fact that, like, something like Game of Thrones, it comes from a book. You can write about whatever you want in a book, and you can let your imagination do the work. There's still characters, and there's still logic, and there's still sense to it. Lovecraft doesn't have much of that. It's meant to break your humanity, go beyond the limits of, like, what humans can imagine, and that's why it works so well in a book, because all you can do with a book is imagine. The fact that you're having a little bit of visuals to help you, I know for a fact that these guys that made Game of Thrones are going to go a little bit over the top and make too many visuals. They're going to make it too visual. They're going to put a face on Cthulhu. I call it now. They're going to show Cthulhu in, like, the first episode.
Yeah, whether it's a show or a movie, I just don't have any confidence in them right now. Who knows? Maybe this will change, and I doubt we're ever going to feel satisfied or grateful for how they handled Thrones. But who knows? We could actually take this back when the film actually does come out, and if it's good, I'll accept that.
We'll have to see.
But right now, my hope is with the Lovecraft verse currently being made by the Lost in Space, Color of Space team, because they seem like they understand what's important, and yeah, they have an idea, they have a plan, and D&D just don't seem like the guys who would prep for this kind of plan. They would just go in for the spectacle, and when it's done, oh, yeah, we'll do our own thing, we've got other projects to deal with.
Just like they did with Thrones.
Yeah.
Sad times.
And look how that turned out. So with this next entry, I'd like to talk about the Thing remake, because apparently it was reported recently on Bloody Disgusting that Universal Studios is developing a new adaptation of Who Goes There, with the lost pages of the original book, which were found in 2018, and basically given the title Frozen Hell. And the idea is basically it's The Thing again, but with these new pages that expand the story. And it was announced recently that Alan Donners, whoever this guy is, I don't know, he was recently announced basically saying he's contracted to basically exclusively produce the film, the remake of The Thing. So I guess really at the end of the day, what's your thoughts on this? Have you seen The Thing recently?
I've seen The Thing. Not recently though, quite a while ago. I do really enjoy the film. The fact that it's like a very body horror film, like very, very gruesome. My lord, that film, makes you really like. I really enjoy like body horror films. I really enjoy the graphics that they have behind them, all the like realistic puppets they have, especially with the Thing, the old one. It was very like, it was really well done the way the monsters were. The fact that they're gonna maybe remake it makes me worried that they're going to make it a bit too CGI and it's not going to look good anymore.
Honestly, I'm getting flashbacks to The Thing 2011 when I read this, because
I'm actually seeing The Thing 2011.
Oh, you've been saved then. So that film is essentially just a prequel, telling the story of the original team that found the creature before the team of John Carpenter's The Film found them.
Yeah.
And that's a story that fans had wanted to see for years. But at the last minute, the production team, the suits, I should say, they changed their minds on the stance of CGI on the effects, because they looked like it was from the 80s. Even though it's a goddamn movie bloody meant to be emanating from the 80s.
Yeah.
And they basically changed it with CGI at the last minute, and it is so bad. It's bad CGI.
I haven't seen it, so I can't say for myself, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. And there's other problems with the movie too, but the gist of it is that it's a film that in some way didn't need to be made, even though it's something that I would have loved to have seen brought to life. And I still enjoy the film sometimes when I watch it occasionally, and my dad loves it because he loves anything with The Thing. But yeah, the original is similar to Jaws. It's its own classic that was made at the right time, and it's going to be very difficult to recapture that, especially that version of The Thing.
Again, we don't need any more remakes. Come on, man, just leave them how they were. The Thing was a perfect masterpiece. Well, I wouldn't say that, but it was like, The Thing was a great body horror film. Like, you don't need to redo that. No one's asking for a remake of The Thing. Maybe a different thing to do with The Thing.
Yeah, I mean,
no pun intended.
Yeah, I still stand by that I would love for them to do a sequel and adapt that story where it was basically just them trying to isolate this creature.
What if the Thing creature got out into the main world?
Yeah.
How fast would it spread?
Yeah, there are scripts out there, well, I say scripts, there are concepts out there of there was going to be a sequel miniseries that was going to have Kurt Russell return, aged, and it was going to basically be them trying to hunt the creature down in this remote village in Africa, I think. And the idea was that it still kept the isolation aspect of the story, but it definitely upped the count of the risk of humanity. And I would love to see them do that, but after that, again, The Thing isn't the kind of brand that I can see them doing sequel after sequel after sequel like the Monsterverse, and just doing a remake is just basically trying to recapture what was already done so perfectly in the John Carpenter version, minus the fact they've got some more extra content. But what can you really add? Because the prequel showed that they really didn't have the backside to go through with telling all the questions, and you don't need all the questions really, because we don't really need to know what the creature looked like or what it originally was, even though there's a part of me that would love to know those answers. But by doing so, that takes away from the mystery and the dread that the original created. Yeah,
it's similar to a type of Lovecraftian type of deal, isn't it? Where the unknown is more terrifying than if you make it known.
Yeah, and making it a visual representation and giving it a face, a voice, a being.
Putting a label on it already just makes it less scary.
Yeah, basically that. So, I'm not. I really hope this doesn't go through. I hope they just cancel this plan.
Yeah, they could be using their time for other things, I think. Unless they do like some post-apocalyptic thing where the Thing is taking over the world and what it's like. But like, I don't know how they'll do that, because kind of shape-shifting into another person kind of makes it redundant once the whole world's been taken over, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, what are you going to do? You're just going to have the monsters crawling about everywhere. That already takes the suspense and the scare out of it.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really too much you can do with the Thing anymore. I think it's already been done, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not looking forward to it if it is coming out. Not wanting it to come out. And I don't think I'll watch it even if it does. Maybe just for review sakes.
Maybe. But yeah, going on from that, we've got the next subject, and this is a bit, again, I apologise to you, mate, because this is a bit difficult because you haven't seen the final season of Thrones.
Right.
Are you aware of what happened with the prequel business recently?
No.
Okay, so if you remember, I told you a few times while we were watching Thrones that a prequel was announced, and roughly around the time after we caught up the show, I told you that they were going to be doing a prequel on The Long Night, the origins of the White Walkers.
You did mention this, yeah, I remember this now. It's hard to recall because it was a very long time ago we actually sat down and watched it all.
Yeah, we finished it in April. And I remember because it was before the final season started airing, the week before, I think.
Yeah.
And it's funny, actually, if you go back and look at some of the Season 2 videos, you can see almost this timeline of how I've just introduced the show. Another episode later, we've just gone through Season 4.
Yeah, we got through that series very, very quick.
Yeah, that's a great show. And if anything, that's actually kind of what got us into this routine of watching shows together now, and to the point we're now on Naruto Part 2.
Yeah, we're now watching all of Naruto, and we've finished Kid Naruto's story. Now we're on Naruto Shippuden.
Yeah,
which we're going to watch after this podcast. So. Anyway,
I'm excited for that.
Game of Thrones. So tell me about this. What is happening?
So the gist of it. After the disaster that was the final season of Game of Thrones, there was a lot of hope that the spin-off would be able to fix that problem. Because the main... bit of a spoiler here, but not too much, because you kind of already have this idea already. But the final season does not explain a lot of things, especially the White Walkers. Yeah. And the idea that hope that everyone had was that the prequel would be able to shed some light on this and give us an explanation. In the end, we found out in October last year they cancelled the pilot. They cancelled it because the execs looked at it and thought this just doesn't work. So they shot it down, and they then announced we're instead going to do another spin-off focusing on the Targaryen dynasty and their origins and how they came to Westeros. And that's what's coming out now. They've announced that it's going to be called House of the Dragons. And
so they're focusing more on the human drama again.
Yes, it's going to be focused very much on the stuff that we got in the early seasons of Game of Thrones, where it was about the political intrigue, about the houses vying for power. And this
that might be interesting. The one thing Game of Thrones was really good at was the human parts. Where the White Walkers, obviously, because it's meant to be kind of a fantasy tale, but the White Walkers again just were they were kind of like a fleeting kind of horror to me. Like, of course they were a threat and everything, and they were coming, and there was nothing you could do about it. But the human, the first few seasons of the human, especially the first season in general, where it was just the Stark family getting by, I do really like kind of medieval type, especially fantasy. Fantasy is a really good genre for medieval to go hand in hand with it. But medieval times kind of stories is really, really interesting to me, and especially what the drama would be like back then. What would everyone be doing? What's happening? Kind of there's so many brutal things that happened back in medieval times. And I think we just can't really get enough of medieval type genre films and series. So is this going to be a series then?
Yeah, they confirmed it's going to be a 10-episode first season, and considering
and then it's going to go down 6 episodes on the last season.
Oh god! Thankfully, the one thing I will say out of this cancellation of the original prequel, is that this at least gives me confidence that HBO are pissed at Dave and Dan, because we know that. Well, I know because I talked about it in the last podcast.
They want to make up for it. They want to do something else, Game of Thrones, to satisfy the Game of Thrones fans.
Yeah, because I think I mentioned this in the last podcast with Harry. They were governing to have more seasons because it's a show that made them a lot of money. So of course they would want it.
Is it?
No, but they were happy for Dave and Dan to take their time, do more seasons, maybe give Martin more time to finish the books. Hey, I can guarantee you, if they had said we need to take 2 years off so Martin can finish the book, so we can play our story or can do a different story that feels more in Spirit to Thrones, they would have said yes slightly.
Yeah, but people wouldn't have waited for Game of Thrones that long. I don't think.
I think they would have, because again we waited for a year to.
Well, they would have to wait. That's the problem. They would have to wait. But I feel like a lot of the fans would just be like, "No, I can't be bothered anymore." 2 years later.
That's the thing. That I think the problem is that really they would have waited, and despite their complaints, they would have been happy with the final product.
2 years is a long time though to wait for a finish of a product, especially a final season. I don't think fans would have been very happy about waiting that long.
Really, because I honestly think that people are more pissed that David Ann chose to rush it.
Oh yeah, I mean choosing it to rush it is a whole different.
Yeah, that's the worst thing you can do. Cause
there was no middle ground though. There is a middle ground somewhere there where he could have made at least 10 episodes, and he could have made it a bit more explanatory. They could have made it better. But then again, they had no books to go on, and I think they are better at making stories that are already written. That are already wrote.
Yeah, but I just think that they need these kind of stories that they're telling need to take their time. You need to understand the story, the characters, the setting, especially when it comes to... I mean, I won't get into the White Walker stuff anymore, because again, you'll see it for all its glory and how they fuck it up in the final season. But I just think that there was plenty of... I mean, anyone who's curious, just watch my podcast with Harry at Podcast 3 on back when we actually had hope and admiration for the show and what we were hoping would be the story of the final season before it effed up.
Oh, you innocent boys.
Yeah, we were such summer children. But yeah, I guess so back to the main thing for this. We know there's going to be 10 episodes, thankfully, and HBO, they're great for a first season. So, and I can guarantee there's going to be more seasons. Because again, if this does good, they're going to want to continue that goodwill going. They're going to want people to say, forget about the final season, let's give you this that's pretty much quintessential Game of Thrones in all its good glory, and no stuff that's holding you back in terms of the D&D stuff.
Yeah.
And we do know that it's being on track to be released around 2022. So they're likely to begin production around 2021, I believe.
Okay.
So
that's not too far off.
Yeah, so a bit a while away, almost a decade since the show began. Or a year after, so 11 years, I think. So, yeah, so a bit of ways away towards release. But I am hopeful this means that they're going to be giving it all they got. And they're going to make it the best product it can be.
Well, they're going to have to make up for the last season, aren't they?
Yeah. Although I am curious to see the story. Because allegedly, if reports are to be believed, we've got this report here from Midnight Edge. Apparently, Screen Rant. But according to them, Night's Edge Medias has reported that they have viewed the official casting call for House of the Dragons, and they confirmed that the main cast at least, is going to be Aegon Targaryen and his sister wives Visenya and Rhaegar. Rhaenys.
These are hard names to pronounce, do not blame me.
Yeah. It took me years to learn how to pronounce Daenerys. And essentially, they're going to be the leads of the first season, at least. And this pretty much sets up that the first season is going to revolve around the first Targaryen conquest of Westeros, and how, again, the Targaryens came to power. And, yeah, that's something that I think we were kind of pushing to see in a prequel if they ever did make one. And I'm glad they're going to be doing this, because it means we can get more stuff inspired to what we got with the early seasons of Thrones. But at the same time, I think Season 8 is always going to be clouding over them because of how they ended the things.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll see how it turns out in the end.
I can only hope for the best. I don't really know what the story they're going to really cover, because I've never really delved into the books and the really deep story of Game of Thrones. I've only ever seen the TV show, and what I have seen of it is obviously limited to what there is. Compared to like the size of the books and whatnot, and how expansive the world actually gets. So it'll be interesting to see kind of more Game of Thrones stuff. It'll be nice to see more Game of Thrones stuff. It would be, and especially if it's done well.
Yeah, I still love the genre. I still love Thrones a lot, but I do just think that this final season just pushed a lot of wrench into a lot of goodwill with fans. So hopefully this new series will be able to bring them back and maybe let us forget the past and move on to a brighter future with the series.
Okay.
Speaking of brighter futures, the last topic of today, I say the last topic, but yeah, this is the sort of main final one, really. So we saw The Rise of Skywalker when it came out in December, and I gave a sort of review-ish video on it, but it's mostly just me venting my frustrations in the movie, because there was a lot more to talk about it, but I just really exhausted myself at the halfway point. And I talked for half an hour, so my apologies. But I haven't seen it since, but I've had a lot of time to think about it. Would you say your thoughts have changed on the film much? Would you think it's better?
I would say a tiny bit. I would say my views have changed a little bit. Because the first time you see it, obviously, it's very raw emotions after you come out of the theatre, kind of like... It's a Star Wars spectacle. It's like very high. It's meant to be kind of high budget. It's Disney, isn't it? They're going to make big explosions and everything, very, very much more dramatic. Because it's at the end of the day, they're trying to end the Star Wars story. They're trying to end the Skywalker saga, sort of, which is like, very hard thing to do because they've already fucked it up. So, like, to finish it all in one movie when they should have started finishing it off in the last movie, but in the last movie they did fucking nothing. Can I just say?
Oh, I'm so happy to hear you say that.
A stupid movie. Didn't need to be there. Yeah. So, this movie in itself, The Rise of Skywalker, a lot more happens, and it is better than the movie before it. What was it called again? The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So it's better than The Last Jedi. And there are just things that happen in the film which is just like bad, man. Like there was so much better things they could have done with this film. There were so many better things they could have done with this film. But at the end of the day, this is what they've made. This is the final product. And it's not as bad as they could have made it.
I disagree on parts, but I do think that it's not as offensive as Last Jedi, because, in my opinion, after giving it some thought, I definitely left the theatre feeling a bit more enjoyed with the movie, as opposed to Last Jedi, where I just left fuming.
The Last Jedi, like, it was just a slugfest to sit through, man.
I left that film upset, confused, and angry, because of how they treated Luke Skywalker, of how they handled the sequel trilogy characters, of how they basically put everything to a standstill, and how they basically said, this is the themes and ideas we're going for, because this is how we view Star Wars, completely undermining the story of Star Wars and everything expected of that story. Again, this is something I'll say for the main Star Wars podcast whenever I get around to doing that one, God damn it. But I just think the sequel trilogy, at the end of the day, should have been about the legacy of Darth Vader. It should have been the legacy of the Skywalkers, and it should have been them teaming up to face a threat beyond the Emperor, beyond the Empire, beyond what had come before. But the sequel trilogy was just rehashing the old films for the sake of money, and this is the pinnacle of that, where with Last Jedi, they just gave it to an unknown guy and said, do what you want with it, just make it good. With this film, they clearly saw that, yeah, people didn't like the way that guy handled that story with the characters that they grew up loving. So we need to basically make it the best movie possible by taking everything that they've known from the old series and basically putting it in this movie, and maybe just throwing in some nuggets in here and there of interesting concepts and stuff. But by doing so, I think that was the worst thing they could have done. Because bit of touching on here with because you won't know this, but I'm sure everyone else will. But it was confirmed recently that Colin Trevorrow, who was the original writer for Episode 9, his script was leaked to the internet recently, and it gave us a rundown of his vision.
I know there was lots of different leaks where it was lots of different scripts, like where they couldn't quite figure out how to end it, so there was loads of different endings.
There's truth to some of that, but there was plenty of leaks that confirmed the movie's plot that months in advance that people found out about it, and it was like, yeah, this is going to suck, and lo and behold, it did.
Yeah.
But there truthfully was some different alternative scenes that they didn't put in the movie that would have been better. But with Trevorrow's script, I won't touch upon this too much, because again, that's another video for another day. But in short, it was pretty much a Last Jedi sequel, and you'd think I would be unhappy with that, but truth be told, reading that script and that version, I honestly like that one more, because the one thing it fundamentally does not do in that script is it doesn't undermine what came before it. It actually pushes the characters forwards. There's still problems with it, because in the story, Rey is still an OP Mary Sue, but they at least acknowledge that, yeah, she's still training, and she's actually being trained by the Force Ghost of Luke. So he's got a role in the movie. He's actually doing stuff that involves the plot, and we get to see the Luke Skywalker that we've been wanting to see since Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And we get to see other characters like Rose, Finn, and Poe. They do stuff in the movie beyond the stuff that they did in the actual movie. We actually get to see Kylo Ren stay as the main villain. And I wouldn't say that's something that I campaigned for from the beginning, but I do think that it's better than just bringing back the Emperor. And the main thing with the main problem I have with Rise of Skywalker is just how it undermines the originals, because bringing back the Emperor is the worst thing you could have done, because not only does that undermine Anakin and his sacrifice...
Yeah, that's pretty shit.
Yeah, but not only that, but you're retroactively saying that this entire saga now was not the Skywalker saga, it was the Palpatine saga. Because now you pushed Rey to be this main character in this entire series, and she's a Palpatine.
Yeah.
And this could have worked in a way if they had structured this from the beginning, if they actually said, yeah, in episode 8, she was a Palpatine. But, yeah. Again, no video for another day.
And then she earns herself not being a Palpatine if she doesn't want to be a Palpatine.
Yeah, or better yet, if she actually takes the name Palpatine but chooses to make the name for good.
Yeah.
And insert some other story they could have done with the Skywalker bloodline or ended it there or whatever. I still think the Kenobi route would have been better, but I think that what they did try and do, you can see what they were going for, but it just clearly didn't work because all the setup was not there. They didn't plan this trilogy out. They didn't set the groundwork ready, and what they did do was just... I just personally think that Rian Johnson, he's a good filmmaker in his own way. Apparently, I've talked to some of my friends recently, and they've all said his film Knives Out is quite good, and I've seen Looper, I think it's okay. So, I will give Rian Johnson this, because I think I've mentioned in the last podcast I hated the guy, and with a passion, and he's a bastard. But I don't know him personally, and at the end of the day, I never will. But I can only just say that, as a fan of Luke Skywalker and the story of Star Wars, what he did to the brand, I think, was just unacceptable, and I will probably never understand why he thought it was a good idea to make certain things the way they were in that movie.
He just probably didn't understand Star Wars.
That's the more crazy thing, though, because he allegedly accepts that he's a fan, and he grew up with the films. So I would have thought you would have thought the best thing you could have done with these characters is do the legacy treatment, make them be the ones to train the new generation, and let them take the baton once Episode 8 comes along, Episode 9 happens, and from there, smooth sailing. I mean, I'm sorry, yeah. There's...
I want to go past the Skywalker series. With Star Wars in general, I'm kind of just done with it now. I'm not done with Star Wars in general. I'm done with the Skywalker story. I'm definitely done with the Skywalker story. I would just like to see more Star Wars stuff. I'm sure we'll get to that in a sec. The many other Star Wars stuff that does not suck butts. But yeah, I just think they could have handled the Skywalker saga much better. But that's a lot of pressure there, to be honest. It's a very hard thing to do. Because how it was built up to be so good, and then the prequels fucked it a bit, but then when they carried it on, they also fucked it.
The main frustration really is just because it's a lack of planning, and the fact that it was with the sequel trilogy is the most offensive part of it, because this is part of the main saga series, the films that you think would be the most crucial to get right. And say what you will about the prequels, but there was a vision behind that story. You understood how characters got from A to B, and you understood
it was like one writer, wasn't it?
It was one vision of one man, and it was the story about this guy, this Anakin Skywalker, and how he fell but came back to the light in the end. The Disney films, it's their own. They could be their own entry, and you could watch those films on their own and say, "Oh, this is episode 7." Doesn't really feel like it. Because that's what they were going for, and it just wasn't right.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a continuation of the Star Wars story for me.
Yeah,
it was a Star Wars story. The Emperor definitely didn't need to be in that. It was cool to see him do the but he didn't actually say it, which made me quite sad, by the way. But they could have at least given us that. But the fact that when he did his whole lightning thing, that was quite the spectacle to see. That was kind of cool to see because we haven't seen the Emperor unleash his full power on screen. We've only seen him do a little bit of shockies every now and again, a little bit of Sith lightning to tickle some giblets every now and again. But we haven't seen him go all out crazy like that. But I guess that's just all due to Disney's budget.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of stuff they could have done with and beyond the Skywalker saga with some of these characters, but I just think how they chose to do it just didn't work, and I don't think I'm ever going to recover from not liking the sequel trilogy, because how they just treat the actors, how they treat the characters, but more so how they treated the fans in those 2 years between this film and The Last Jedi, and how they labelled us and how they said we were this and that if we didn't like the movie or if we had complaints about it. Because, sure, there were people who were justifiably being bastards about it, But for those of us who generally didn't like the movie because this or that or X and Y, and it was justifiable excuses.
Yeah.
For them to say, "Oh, you're in with this lot. You're mean,
to point figures, label, just be mean to your fans.
Yeah, the people who are giving you your money, they're paying for your living, and then to have the
but it's not even that. Like, I'm sure they don't need, like, they have lots of money anyway. Disney's a fucking multi-billion corporation because of how much it has behind it. I don't think, even if Star Wars completely flopped, which it did, even if Star Wars flopped even harder than it did, say if no one went to go see the movies, they didn't earn a single penny from it, they wouldn't have been a catastrophic loss to them. They would still have budgets to make other things. That's the thing. Like, they kind of just treated it like a product.
Yeah, and
more than a story.
And that's the worst crime, when you basically take this age-long classic story and basically turn it into a product with no thought else other than just to make money. That's when you destroy any potential you have for it.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing about it for me.
I don't think it's the end for Star Wars in general, though. It's just that they don't need to do any more Skywalker stuff. I don't want to see any more Skywalker stuff. I don't give a shit about Skywalker stuff anymore. It's done. Story's done. It's fucking been had. There's 9 films? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, man. Like, I'll watch anything else Star Wars, like The Mandalorian. That's great.
Yeah, that is good.
That's a Star Wars set world. About fucking time someone makes something Star Wars that isn't anything to do with Skywalkers. But I mean, the closest you can get to it is Baby Yoda. But, you know, Baby Yoda's amazing.
Yeah.
There's even an episode where Stormtrooper punches Baby Yoda. It's great.
I love that guy. That Stormtrooper's a winner in my book.
That was amazing. I've never fallen out of my chair laughing so hard in a very long time. The fact that baby got punched.
Oh,
like, come on, man.
Yeah. Well, in regards to the future of Star Wars now, so this is the final topic, really, the final topic of this podcast today. There's been some talks, nothing's legit confirmed yet, but allegedly some talks, rumours and speculations have come out about the future of the Star Wars brand beyond the Skywalker saga. Before that though, in talks to The Mandalorian, there's apparently been talks that a character from the Skywalker saga could be appearing in Season 2. Okay. And as of yet, there's no confirmation on who that could be. Everyone's kind of banking on it being Boba Fett, because, again, he's the most iconic bounty hunter out there. That would make sense to appear in the series at some point.
I don't know what kind of like timeline Mandalorian is set compared to, so I don't know if Boba Fett or Jango Fett would be alive.
It's post Return of the Jedi, so it would
Return of the Jedi. Okay.
Yes, the most logical sense would have it to be Boba Fett.
Boba Fett is alive back then, isn't he?
He was technically we don't know.
That would be cool. Boba Fett's cool. Boba Fett's a good character.
It would be. We don't know for sure because he last time we saw him, he fell into a Sarlacc pit. So
yeah,
if they are going to bring him back, it would have to be them explaining how he survived that. Which, of course, I think is a given if they are going to bring him back in any form of media.
I don't know if they should bring him back then. Maybe it should be like...
Oh, no,
it is set... You can't change the timeline just to fit Boba Fett.
Oh, no. I think it's common... There's common ground for them to do it. It's just a matter of if they want to do it. Because...
He is Mandalorian. Maybe he will do it.
He's technically not. He's not. He's just got the armour for it.
Oh, right. Boba Fett's not Mandalorian?
Apparently. I don't know the full story, but apparently he's not, according to the existing canon. But... I just think it would be cool to see the icon that is Boba Fett team up with this new Mandalorian and just see what story that entails with that. However, others have said that it could actually be Luke Skywalker, and the idea that...
Please don't.
I don't know, part of me disagree with this though, because the idea with this theory at least is that apparently they're going to de-age Mark Hamill to appear in at least 2 episodes, to maybe just 1, and the idea is that he would basically advise the Mandalorian about Baby Yoda. And it would be like how you should give him to me, let me teach him in the ways of the Force. And knowing the Mandalorian, he'd likely say no. And just give him some sage advice.
Wait, is Baby Yoda actually Yoda? No, it's not. It's just they just call it Baby Yoda because it's the same species of just a baby's one of those species. Right, okay.
As of now, he's just the child.
Right, okay. I thought it was actually Baby Yoda. And I thought it was before Clone Wars. Yeah, I haven't delved into The Mandalorian yet. I just know it's a good show.
Oh, because you haven't seen it then?
No, I haven't actually watched it yet. But I just know it's a good show. I've seen the scene of the Stormtrooper punching Baby Yoda. I want to wait until it's all out and then start watching it, because I like doing that with shows. I like binging it, so I don't want to have to wait for releases. So I'm kind of waiting for it all to be done, and then I'm going to watch it. So then I can give you my proper opinion on it.
Yeah, I'm currently doing that for the current season of Doctor Who. Really, haven't really. Yeah. I mean, I've seen the first 2 episodes, but I haven't held up much hope for the series.
Have you seen an episode called Orphan
55?
Orphan 55.
I know of its reputation now. I'm dreading the episode, but
we don't need to get into that. But
yeah, that's another video for another day. But yeah, I think you'll really enjoy The Mandalorian. I think it's definitely the best Star Wars product they've done since Rogue One, and it understands Star Wars.
It's something I wanted. It was something I've said to you that I've wanted as well. A Star Wars story that isn't Skywalker. Something completely different, like, you know, the Old Republic and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, way before any of this bullshit between, like, Palpatine. Like, Palpatine didn't matter back then. There were stronger emperors back in the Old Republic. There were stronger, like, there were better Jedis way back in there. There were, like, way better stories. There were no clones. Like, it was just the Republic versus the Sith. Or I think it was just called the Sith. No, the Imperium or whatever.
Imperium Empire or something?
I have no idea. I can't remember. But I think it was just the Sith, actually. Republic versus Sith. So that like, there's so many more stories you can do, and the fact that they keep rinsing and milking the Skywalker stories, making me a little bit bored of Star Wars, if I'm going to be honest. It's making me bored of Star Wars. I want something fresh. I want something fresh on my plate, man.
True, but I do, in regards to the Mandalorian rumor with it potentially being Luke Skywalker, I do think it would be cool, just because, again, back to Last Jedi, how it treated Luke, and how we still have yet to see Luke Skywalker, the Jedi Master, fully realised. And considering how I would have preferred what they did with the Duel of Fate script as opposed to the Rise of Skywalker script, I just think that if we are owed to see Luke Skywalker in at his best, and I think doing that with just one episode of The Mandalorian where we get to see him give advice, be the wise Jedi, the master that he is, I just think that would be good for fans, just enough to say, here's the goodwill we promised you, but also moving past it. You're not going to see him again beyond this one episode or guest appearance maybe. And I'd be happy with that, because I just think that we are owed to see something of that at least.
Maybe that would be good. Maybe that would be. I don't know though, because I haven't seen The Mandalorian yet. It'll be interesting to see how they adaptate it if it's not shit.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it should be out maybe the end of this year or maybe early next year. We'll see.
Maybe the thing people like about Mandalorian the most is the fact that it moves away from the Skywalker saga.
It tells its own story, and that's what's important. Because
about fucking time.
I briefly mentioned it in my Rise of Skywalker review. It tells its own story, but it's respectful to the lore that it's borrowing from.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's rehashing anything. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be relevant or be nostalgia galore. But yeah, beyond the TV side of things, in regards to the movies, currently we know there's a new film coming out that's actually going to be the start of a new trilogy in 2022. And this was originally meant to be helmed by David and Dan before they left the project. And more reports have been surfacing here and there. Nothing's confirmed officially yet. But if it's to be believed, this new trilogy, this next trilogy as it were, is apparently going to be based during the era of the High Republic. And apparently,
what's the era of the High Republic? Is that the old?
It's not. It's between the Old Republic and before 4,000 or something years before the events of the prequel era.
Right.
And this is what
before the Clone Wars.
Yeah, before the Clone Wars. Apparently, from the words going around, the new trilogy is going to be set during the era of the High Republic, during a time where the Jedi are at the peak of their power and the Sith are absent from the galaxy. Apparently the film's also going to feature a younger Yoda, though he's not going to be like the sage, wise Jedi Master that we know him as.
He's a young boy, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's learning. This is how he got wise, boy.
Although apparently it won't be his origin story. That's what people are expecting, I guess, because they need him there, I guess, for the familiarity.
The whole story I would not like to be an origin story about him, because that again is clinging to anything that is current modern Star Wars. I feel like that's just clinging to like, oh, everyone, here's Yoda. You remember this guy? This story's going to be about him. No, just give us new Star Wars shit. Young Yoda can be in it. Just don't make it all about him, man.
Exactly. And apparently also, this new trilogy is set to be about exploration and will deal with the Jedi trying to discover and learn more about the Force and the lost Jedi knowledge long forgotten from the time during and before the events of the Old Republic era. And if this is to be believed, apparently the film could be about them discovering a new threat beyond the Sith. Whether that's the use of Vong, or whether it's a completely original threat.
There are a lot of them out there.
Yeah, there's plenty you can do with the brand beyond Jedi, Sith, Dark and Light.
Yeah.
And the only information I have on this beyond that is that apparently the production is hoping to begin likely at the end of this year, or maybe next year, and I hope this is true. Kathleen Kennedy will not be involved planning this trilogy at all on a creative level.
Good. Get out of here. We don't need you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kathy, but you've proven time and time again you're not.
Chance. You've had your limelight and you fucked it. That's your fault. Go live in the shit show. That is the Star Wars Skywalker saga now.
Just retire. Just leave with some dignity.
Yeah, we don't need your messages anymore. We want Star Wars, not like real world messages. I would like more Star Wars.
Yes.
Wars in the stars.
So with regards to this potential plot of the story, again, the plot loosely, really, the concept, I guess.
Yeah, the concept is really good. The fact that they're opening up to maybe the Old Republic story is something I've been dying to see for a very long time, personally, as a Star Wars fan. I know I played the Old Republic games, the MMO game. So I know a little bit about the Old Republic world, what it's like, and I can tell you it is a lot more interesting as a Star Wars story than it is. If they get BioWare involved, that would be pretty cool. They're great at writing so many good stories within this single game. That they have so many endless stories in this single game, all written with their own cutscenes, their own paths, because you can choose what you say. Maybe they could get them involved and help with the Old Republic. I was kind of hoping that it would be animated, though. Like,
yeah, I mean, I've seen
the animated stuff with Star Wars seems to work.
Yeah, because you showed me long time ago now. You showed me the cinematic visual trailers for the Old Republic, and like the one with the Empire. I think it's called Scattered Empire or something. But it was again, I'm sure you can watch the videos in your own time, audience, if you knew what we're talking about.
Lots of
but those alone kind of set the template that Star Wars could work as an animated form.
Yeah, just look up the Star Wars The Old Republic cinematic trailers and watch all of them. They're great. If you haven't seen them before, which you probably have if you're anything into video games, if you haven't, those are great cinematic trailers to watch. And they already just outdo a lot of Star Wars stuff nowadays, which is sad, man.
Yeah, that's the sad thing. When a 5 to 3 minute video can get you more emotionally invested in a hype for Star Wars than the actual bloody trilogy that was made by the $1 Million company.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Disney. But yeah, again, going back to hopes with this is a lot. This has been the recurring thing about this podcast. I'm going to remain hopeful, but this is the one I'm least hopeful for as well, because Star Wars really has burned my love for the brand.
I mean, there's so much to do with. There's so much content in the Old Republic story. I don't know what they're going to choose. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think the best thing they can do with this story is that if they were going to do this, have it be 2 new characters unrelated to Skywalkers or Palpatines or anything else. Just have them be 2 new original characters. They meet Yoda, he gives them a mission, and it's them basically exploring the galaxy, and they can find this threat, and ensue the plot happens. And that can be the driving story of the entire trilogy. Have it be these 2 young Jedi or these 2 Force-sensitive beings just learning the deeper secrets of the galaxy and the Force while fighting against this new threat. And I think, while that might sound basic, I do think that's a good groundwork for them to set a new trilogy off without trying to basically go, let's do episode 10, let's do another Skywalker saga, let's do this that we've already seen before. No. Because you know they're going to do it at some point.
Stop.
But who knows? I'm definitely curious to see what they will do. but I'm not going to hold out hope for Star Wars' future, because, again, there's probably going to be a continuing war between the fans and Disney until some good groundwork can be laid. Because I do feel like they've got a long way to go to win back the fans, and again,
it was them that pushed away the fans in the first place.
Yeah, and it's just more sad because, again, when you effed up the main saga, you can't get away from that. You can't, again, kind of like Game of Thrones. You can't really. You can make new content and you can win back favor and try and say forget about the mistakes of the past. But with Star Wars.
We did it right this time, kind of thing.
Yeah, but the brand's always going to be associated with the Skywalker saga, and how they chose to end it in such a poorly planned out way, it's going to stick with them forever, and they're always going to be associated with that mindset.
The fact that they're definitely going to hold on to the license as well, because the amount of money that comes behind the Star Wars license, with all the toys, all the Lego Star Wars, all the Star Wars products that you can buy, especially with all the new plushies of whatever those creatures are in the new films. There's like a lot of money behind the thing, and it's not something Disney's going to give up anytime soon. They're just going to keep doing it and keep making films, hopefully better than the last ones. But I feel like with the Star Wars license, they are going to abuse their power, and maybe they will get a bit too. Maybe they'll just make another bad Star Wars story. Maybe they will, but do you know what? I'm going to hold out hope. The Old Republic story, you could, like, there's so many stories in the Old Republic story. Just fucking choose a good one, and do it good.
Like, don't adapt it. Just tell your own story that happens to be set in that corner of the galaxy, and make it good, make it fun, make it interesting, but make it in spirit to Star Wars, and people will like it. You don't need to put all this real world stuff in it. You don't need to do virtual signaling or.
It's in a galaxy. It's in a far away galaxy. Like
you don't need to make characters icons for the sake of being icons. Just make them be characters.
It's meant to be in a galaxy far, far away. I want to feel like I'm in a galaxy far, far away, not in like the shitty world that we're in now. No thanks. Like if I go into the cinema and I go to watch a film, it's because I want to get immersed into it. If I play video games, I really like getting immersed into my video games. Like being sucked into the world and out of this one is something every human enjoys in entertainment. Like, everyone loves going into a different world where anything is possible. Like, that is a very intriguing idea to humans, to people in general. And the fact that they push you out of that world, and they go, yeah, but there's problems in this world that you're in currently, so let's forget about this Star Wars story, instead let's push our agenda onto you. Like, it just ruined it. That was the problem.
It just puts you back into the real world horrors of things. And it's like,
I don't want to
feel like this. I don't want to feel like I go to the movies to escape.
Yeah.
I don't need to be reminded of the horrors of man or the horrors of the real world when I just want to watch a movie about space wizards and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything else. There's a time and a place for taking a stance and helping the world.
And if you do write a message, you can do it in other ways. So it's like a penis. You can wiggle it about, and like you can have one. It's great, but don't shove it down people's throats. Come on, man.
Okay. Not how I thought this was going to end. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of today's podcast. So
God, we got through a lot of subjects.
Eventually. I know, it's amazing what you can do when you just have fun talking. But yeah, thanks for joining me with this one, mate.
No problem.
It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun sitting and chatting about all these subjects that were well overdue to talk about, but we did it.
Yeah. So, well, who knows what will be seen for the future, but we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah.
In the meantime, hope to see you all again soon. I'm Kobi.
And I'm Lennon.
And thank you for joining us for the Great Art Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. And I am joined once again by my great friend Harry. God damn it. Filmmaker Richard Stanley, director of the H.P. Lovecraft adaptation of The Colour from Outer Space, has announced that he's writing 2 follow-up films. Hold on. Then I can cut this out.
Yeah, that's no problem.
He says that his next script is